Lily was born on a rainy morning in late October. The delivery room was filled with anticipation and nerves, but the moment she entered the world, a strange silence took over. She didn't cry right away. The doctors and nurses exchanged quick glances, and her mother, Emily, felt a sudden chill despite the warmth of the hospital lights. It didn't take long for them to realize something was wrong. After hours of tests and hushed conversations in the hallway, the diagnosis came. Lily had a rare spinal cord condition that had caused partial paralysis. The lower half of her body didn't respond to touch or movement. The doctors explained that while Lily's brain was active and healthy, the signals couldn't reach much of her body. They used medical terms that sounded cold and distant, but all Emily could hear was, "She may never crawl or walk." Josh, Lily's father, stood silently beside Emily, his arm wrapped around her shoulder. He was the kind of man who didn't cry easily, but when he saw their daughter in the neonatal unit, her tiny legs wrapped in soft hospital blankets, his eyes filled with quiet tears. The weeks that followed were overwhelming. They met with specialists, physical therapists, and counselors. Some were hopeful, others were careful with their words. Everyone agreed that Lily's journey would be different, filled with challenges most babies would never face. But Emily and Josh refused to let that define her story. They transformed their home into a place of healing. A physical therapy mat replaced the living room rug. Toys with different textures and sounds lined the floor. Every evening, Emily played gentle music while practicing movement exercises with Lily's tiny arms. Josh, a carpenter, built custom support cushions and a baby chair that fit Lily perfectly. Despite the limitations, Lily's personality began to shine. She had a contagious smile that lit up the room. She loved the sound of crinkling paper and always giggled when Emily made silly faces. She couldn't kick her legs like other babies, but she had a sparkle in her eyes that told a different story. "She's going to find her own way," Emily would whisper, holding Lily close against her chest. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: this little girl was a fighter, and her story was only just beginning. It was a quiet Saturday morning when the unexpected visitor arrived. Emily was in the kitchen, blending Lily's formula, while Josh carefully adjusted the cushions in Lily's therapy chair. The doorbell rang, followed by the sound of muffled excitement just outside. When Emily opened the front door, her sister Sarah stood there holding a small bundle of fur. Ears too big for its head, paws oversized, tail wagging in every direction. A German Shepherd puppy. Emily's eyes widened. "Wait, what is this?" she asked with a laugh, though her voice held a trace of concern. Sarah smiled, placing the pup gently into Emily's arms. "He's for Lily," she said softly. "I know you've got a lot on your plate, but I thought she could use a friend." Emily looked down at the tiny creature nestled against her chest. His fur was a warm mix of black and tan, his eyes wide and curious. He didn't squirm or bark. He just stared up at her calmly, as if waiting for permission to belong. Josh stepped into the doorway and paused. "You're serious?" he asked Sarah. "A puppy?" "I know it's a big step," Sarah admitted, "but I've read stories about how animals connect with kids who have disabilities. Sometimes they just get it." Emily wasn't sure. Their lives were already a delicate balance of therapy schedules, medical checkups, and sleepless nights. Adding a puppy into the mix felt risky, but something about the way the little dog looked at her made her hesitate before saying no. They decided to give it a try. That afternoon, Lily lay on her soft mat in the living room, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slowly above her. Emily brought the puppy over carefully, letting him sniff the blanket near her feet. What happened next surprised everyone. Instead of bouncing around or pawing at Lily's toys, the puppy lowered himself gently beside her. He didn't make a sound. He simply laid his head near Lily's hand and closed his eyes. Lily turned her head slightly, her gaze locking onto the puppy's fuzzy ears. A small, breathy sound escaped her lips, almost a giggle. Her fingers brushed against his fur, and though she couldn't move much, her face lit up with curiosity. Emily's heart softened. Maybe this wasn't a complication. Maybe this was something they didn't know they needed. The puppy stayed there for nearly an hour, not moving, as if he already knew his place in Lily's world. That night, they gave him a name, Max. And from that moment on, he was family. In the days that followed, Max settled into the house like he'd always belonged. Most puppies were wild and unpredictable, chewing shoes, chasing shadows, barking at everything that moved. But Max was different. He was calm, curious, and eerily aware of his surroundings, especially when it came to Lily. He quickly learned the sounds of her wheelchair, the beeps of her medical monitor, and the soft cries she made when something didn't feel right. Whenever Lily was on her therapy mat, Max would quietly trot over and sit beside her, never stepping on her toys or interrupting her sessions. He seemed to know that this wasn't playtime, it was important. Emily couldn't believe how naturally it all happened. During one of Lily's morning therapy sessions, Emily gently helped her stretch her arms. Max, watching from a few feet away, crawled forward and placed his paw next to Lily's hand. Lily, with her limited strength, tried to reach out. When her fingers brushed his fur, she let out a soft coo, her version of laughter. Max didn't move. He just looked at her with wide, patient eyes. That night, Josh came home to find Max curled up under Lily's crib, his ears twitching every time she made a sound. Josh crouched down and whispered, "You're watching over her, huh, buddy?" Max lifted his head for a second, then rested it back down with a soft sigh, as if to say, "Always." Emily and Josh began to notice little changes. Lily seemed calmer during therapy when Max was nearby. She smiled more often. Her eyes followed him across the room with quiet excitement. Sometimes she tried to move her fingers just a little more, just to reach him. One morning, Emily caught Max nudging one of Lily's soft toys closer to her hand. He didn't grab it or chew it. He simply pushed it gently until it was within her reach. That small gesture brought tears to Emily's eyes. This puppy wasn't just a companion. He was becoming something more, a comforter, a motivator, a silent guardian. His instincts were sharper than anyone expected for a dog his age. It was as if he had chosen Lily as his person and decided she needed more than just cuddles. She needed someone who understood her. And in his quiet, steady way, Max had stepped into that role without being asked. What Emily once saw as a challenge was slowly becoming a gift. It was one of those rare afternoons when everything felt still, almost suspended in time. The usual hum of the house, the sounds of therapy routines, the chatter of Emily and Josh discussing the day's tasks was replaced by a quiet serenity. The sun streamed through the living room windows, casting golden light across the floor where Lily lay, resting peacefully on her favorite blanket. She had just finished a difficult therapy session, her little body trembling with exhaustion. Emily had seen the signs before, the way Lily's eyelids fluttered, the subtle release of tension in her tiny shoulders. It was the moment when she would finally surrender to sleep, and Emily, with practiced hands, gently adjusted Lily's position to make her more comfortable. Lily's soft breaths filled the room as Emily stood up to grab a glass of water. Josh had stepped out to run errands, leaving the house unusually quiet. The moment felt perfect, still, calm, a peaceful pause in the midst of their busy lives. But what happened next was unexpected. Max, who had been playing quietly with one of his chew toys in the corner, suddenly stopped. He looked up, his ears perking as if he had sensed the shift in the air. Then, without a sound, he padded over to Lily. Emily, her back turned, didn't notice at first. She busied herself with sorting through therapy materials, her mind on the next task. But then she heard it, a soft rustling sound followed by a gentle whine. Turning around, she froze in place. There, curled up beside Lily, was Max. He had silently made his way to her side, and without hesitation, laid down next to her. His head was placed carefully across her legs, as if protecting her from the world. He didn't move. He didn't fidget or shift. He simply rested there, his big brown eyes watching over Lily as if he were standing guard. Max's presence was so quiet and natural that it almost seemed like part of the peaceful atmosphere. There was no clumsy barking, no frantic wiggling, just a steady, comforting silence that enveloped the room. His warmth seemed to soothe Lily, who had drifted even deeper into sleep, her tiny hands still. Emily watched the scene for a moment, her heart swelling. She couldn't remember the last time she'd seen Lily so relaxed. The tension in her own chest eased as she took in the sight of the puppy, his body stretched out protectively around her daughter. For a few minutes, Emily didn't move. She stood there, drinking in the quiet peace that Max had brought into their home. There, in the gentle company of a puppy who had never been asked to play this role, Lily had found a sense of safety, a moment of true calm that made all the struggles worth it. The afternoon sun began to set, casting a warm glow across the room as Emily sat at the kitchen table, her eyes occasionally glancing at Lily and Max. The peaceful scene had become a regular part of their lives, but there was something extraordinary about this particular moment. Lily, now fast asleep, lay on her blanket while Max remained by her side, his body perfectly still. It wasn't like the playful moments they'd had earlier when he nudged her toys or gently licked her fingers. This was something different, something deeper. Emily felt a tug at her heart. Max was no longer just a puppy. He was becoming part of the family in a way that couldn't be explained by words alone. There was a connection between him and Lily that went beyond the usual bond between a child and a pet. It was as if Max instinctively understood that Lily's world was quieter, slower, and that she needed a kind of love that could only come from something pure, gentle, and patient. And then something remarkable happened. Lily stirred in her sleep, her small body shifting slightly under the weight of her blanket. She let out a tiny whimper, a soft sound of discomfort, as if the weight of her body was pressing on her in a way that didn't feel right. It was a sound Emily had heard before during moments when Lily's muscles tensed, unable to fully relax. Without a moment's hesitation, Max stood up, stretching his legs in a quiet, careful movement. Emily's breath caught as she watched him gently nudge Lily's arm with his nose. He didn't bark, didn't jump. He simply pressed his nose against her skin and softly pushed her arm back into a more comfortable position. Lily, still half asleep, let out another soft sigh, her body relaxing into the new position. Max then carefully laid back down beside her, this time a little closer, his body curled up against hers. His warmth seemed to provide a sense of calm, and within moments, Lily was no longer whimpering. Emily watched, her heart filling with both wonder and gratitude. She hadn't even asked Max to do anything. He just knew. He knew exactly what Lily needed and how to give it without being told. It was as though he had become her silent guardian, attuned to every tiny shift in her comfort. Max's protective instincts were undeniable, but it was more than just instinct. There was a quiet, unspoken understanding between the puppy and the baby. They were two beings, one so fragile, one still so young, finding comfort and connection in each other's presence. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt the weight of the world lift just a little. She knew Lily was safe, not just because of the therapy, the doctors, or the routines, but because Max was there, watching over her with the kind of devotion that spoke louder than words ever could. Emily stood in the doorway, her eyes wide with awe as she watched the scene unfold before her. The sight of Max, the small German shepherd puppy, curled up beside her daughter, Lily, was something she never could have imagined just a few months ago. Max's head rested gently across Lily's legs, his eyes half closed in peaceful vigilance. Lily, for her part, was still asleep, her breathing slow and steady. The moment was calm, yet profound. It wasn't the first time Max had been by Lily's side during a nap, but there was something different about today. It was as if their bond had grown deeper, more intuitive. Max was not just a puppy anymore. He was Lily's constant companion, her protector, and somehow her little lifeline. Emily's chest tightened as she watched them, the tears threatening to spill over her eyes. She didn't know why, but this moment struck her deeply. She had spent months adjusting to life with Lily's condition, always hoping that one day something or someone would come along to make it all feel a little easier. And here, in the quiet comfort of their living room, she saw that something. She saw it in the way Max stayed by Lily's side without a single moment of hesitation, without any thought of himself. There were times when Emily couldn't help but wonder if she was doing enough for Lily, if she was providing the right kind of care, or if she was missing something. But right here, right now, she didn't need to worry. The answer was clear. Lily wasn't alone. Not in the way she sometimes feared. Not while Max was there. The dog had come into their lives as a simple gift, a gesture of love from her sister. But now it was clear that Max was more than just a playful puppy. He was the piece of the puzzle they hadn't known they needed. He had brought a sense of peace into their home, a sense of calm that had been missing for so long. Emily pulled out her phone quietly, not wanting to disturb the moment. She snapped a quick photo, her hands shaking as she did so. It was an instinctive action, one she had done many times before, capturing little milestones and moments she never wanted to forget. But this one felt different. This photo wasn't just a snapshot of Lily's nap. It was a reminder of how far they had come, how much they had endured together. And now, in this moment of stillness, it was a reminder that there was love surrounding Lily from every corner of their home. She sent the picture to Josh with a simple message. "You won't believe this." The photo Emily sent to Josh quickly became more than just a personal memento. It was a glimpse into something far more powerful. Within hours of receiving it, Josh shared the picture with a few close friends, just as Emily had shared it with family members. What started as a small, intimate moment between them and their loved ones quickly turned into something much larger. Soon, Emily found herself scrolling through social media, her heart racing as notifications flooded in. People she didn't even know were commenting on the photo. Some left heartwarming words of support. Others shared their own stories of how animals had become a lifeline for children with disabilities. It was like a ripple, quietly spreading across the internet, carrying with it a message of hope and connection. The post struck a chord with so many people. It was more than just a story about a puppy and a baby. It was about love, loyalty, and the quiet ways in which the world can come together when we need it most. Comments flooded in from parents of children with special needs, people who had struggled in their own journeys but found solace in the bond between Max and Lily. The photo had touched something deep in them. Some people said it reminded them that love could come in unexpected forms. Others said it was a symbol of the unconditional bonds that animals form with children. They called it a symbol of hope for anyone facing challenges of their own, and for those who knew the struggles of raising a child with a disability. It felt like a quiet victory. Emily had never expected this. She hadn't shared the photo to make a statement or to draw attention. She just wanted to capture the pure, peaceful moment she had witnessed, her daughter and her dog lying together without care, as if the world outside didn't exist. But as the photo spread, Emily realized that this was bigger than just them. The picture of Max curled protectively around Lily was now a beacon of hope. It represented not only their journey, but also the journeys of so many others who faced challenges of their own. It became a reminder that love, in all its forms, could bring people together in ways they never expected. Messages of support and encouragement filled Emily's inbox. Some were from people who had never faced the difficulties they had, but they still felt the connection. They saw Max and Lily and found a message in the photo that spoke to everyone. No matter how tough life got, there was always a chance for something beautiful to happen. For Emily, it was a humbling experience. She didn't need words from strangers to know that their family had been changed forever. But those words, the stories, the heartfelt comments, reinforced something important. They weren't alone, and neither was anyone else. As the weeks passed, the bond between Lily and Max continued to grow stronger. Max had transformed from a playful, curious puppy into a gentle, unwavering presence in Lily's life. His instincts seemed to deepen with every day that passed. He didn't just sit beside her during therapy anymore. He actively engaged with her in ways that brought joy to both their hearts. Max was there for every milestone, every little achievement Lily made. When she reached out for a toy during her physical therapy, Max would nudge it closer, his tail wagging in encouragement. When Lily cried, Max would softly nudge her face with his nose, as if comforting her in his own quiet way. There was a deep understanding between them, one that went beyond words. In every touch, in every glance, Max seemed to say, "You're not alone." Emily and Josh continued their regular routines, but now there was a calm in the house that hadn't been there before. The stress of therapy sessions, doctor appointments, and the uncertainty of the future didn't feel as overwhelming as it once had. Max had brought a sense of peace to their lives that they didn't know they were missing. One evening, Emily sat on the couch, holding Lily in her arms as they watched Max sleep peacefully at their feet. It had been a long day, and both mother and daughter were exhausted. But there was something about the stillness of the moment that made Emily feel that, despite the challenges, everything was going to be okay. They had each other, and they had Max. A few months earlier, Emily had never imagined their lives would look like this. She hadn't worried about what the future would hold for Lily, but now she saw it differently. With Max by her side, Lily wasn't just surviving. She was thriving in ways Emily had never expected. The puppy had become a source of strength, his presence a reminder that even the smallest act of love could change a life. It wasn't about grand gestures or big milestones. It was about the little moments, the quiet ones that spoke volumes. Every gentle nudge, every comforting presence, every small smile from Lily as Max licked her hand was a victory. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and it was more than enough. Emily looked at Max, who had grown from a tiny puppy into a loyal, loving companion. He had become more than just a pet. He was part of their family, part of their journey. And as she held Lily close, she whispered softly, "Thank you, Max. You've changed our world." The bond between them would last a lifetime, unspoken but felt deeply in every moment.